She didn't win the lottery. She wasn't handed an inheritance. She didn't even earn a six-figure salary. In fact, her story began with just $50. $50 she scraped together every week in between bills, groceries, and a paycheck that barely stretched far enough. Most people would laugh at the idea that $50 could change a life. But for Emily Carter, it became the seed of a fortune. Because today, after years of sacrifice, patience, and choices most people wouldn't dare make, Emily doesn't just own one home. She owns three, paid off, and she started it all with less than the cost of a night out. And the way she did it is a story that flips the script on what most people believe about wealth. Emily Carter wasn't born into wealth. She grew up in a small town, the daughter of two factory workers who taught her the value of hard work, but never had extra money to teach her about investing. By her late 20s, Emily worked as an assistant at a medical clinic. The hours were long, the pay was steady but modest. She earned just enough to cover rent on a tiny one-bedroom apartment, pay for groceries, and keep her used car running. There wasn't much left over. Her friends dreamed about big vacations and fancy handbags. Emily dreamed about stability, owning a home one day, building a future she didn't have to fear. But with her paycheck, that dream felt almost impossible. One Friday evening, after paying bills and realizing she had exactly $50 left over, Emily asked herself a question. What if I stopped treating this money like nothing? What if I treat it like a seed? That moment of curiosity would spark a journey nobody saw coming. A journey that would transform $50 a week, money most people would spend without thinking, into 3 houses, financial freedom, and a life she never imagined possible. But before the success, there were struggles so real that most people in her shoes would have given up before ever seeing results. Emily's journey didn't start with confidence. It started with struggle. Most weeks, she was exhausted. After long shifts at the clinic, she would sit at her kitchen table with bills scattered in front of her, trying to make the numbers work. Rent, electricity, student loans, groceries. By the time everything was paid, she was left with scraps. Sometimes $50, sometimes less. Her friends laughed when she told them she wanted to start saving. $50? That won't buy you much, one said. And sometimes Emily wondered if they were right. It felt pointless. There were nights when she wanted to give up. Nights when her old car broke down and swallowed an entire month's savings. Nights when she had to say no to dinner with friends because she didn't want to spend the $20 it would cost. She made sacrifices nobody noticed. Packing lunch every single day while coworkers ordered takeout. Wearing the same pair of shoes for years until they wore thin. Saying no to vacations, no to splurges, no to anything that didn't fit inside her tight plan. And the hardest part wasn't just the sacrifices. It was the silence. Nobody cheered her on. Nobody believed $50 would matter. When she told a family member she was saving, they shrugged and said, "That's nice, but don't expect too much." Emily felt invisible, like her dream of building wealth was too small to matter. But in the quiet moments, when doubt whispered in her ear, she clung to one thought. Every fortune begins with a first step. And even though her first step was small, she refused to stop walking. What Emily didn't know was that one simple choice, where to put that tiny stream of money, would flip her story upside down. One rainy afternoon, after another long day at the clinic, Emily ducked into the local library. She wasn't looking for anything in particular, just a quiet space to escape her thoughts. But as she wandered through the aisles, a book on personal finance caught her eye. The title was simple, Building Wealth from Small Beginnings. She pulled it from the shelf, sat down at a table, and began to read. The pages were filled with stories of ordinary people who had started with small amounts, $10, $20, $50, and turned them into investments that grew over time. Emily couldn't believe what she was reading. Up until then, she thought investing was only for the wealthy, people who already had thousands to spare. But here was proof that even her $50 a week could matter. That night, she went home and opened her laptop. She spent hours researching. She learned about compound interest, the idea that money could grow on itself if given enough time. She discovered that she didn't need to start big, she just needed to start early, and stay consistent. But Emily didn't stop there. She stumbled across articles about real estate, about people who would save enough for small down payments and use their homes not just to live in, but to build wealth. The idea lit a fire in her. Could she really do it? Could $50 a week lead to her first house? The thought scared her. Houses felt huge, unreachable, and yet something inside whispered, "Why not you?" From that moment, Emily made a decision. She would treat her $50 like sacred money. She wouldn't touch it for clothes or dinners or emergencies that weren't life or death. It would become her future house fund. Every week, no matter how tired she was or how tempting it felt to skip, Emily tucked away those $50. Sometimes it was harder than others, but with each deposit, her belief grew. And after months of quiet discipline, Emily found herself standing in front of something she never thought she'd see: the chance to buy her very first home. Emily's savings account slowly grew. At first, it felt painfully slow. Weeks turned into months, and she sometimes wondered if it was worth it. But after 2 years of steady deposits, she had saved over $5,000. It wasn't enough to buy a house, but it was enough to make her believe. For the first time, she could see her sacrifice turning into something real. She began learning about first-time homebuyer programs, low down payment options that made owning a home possible even without tens of thousands of dollars up front. Emily realized she didn't need to wait until she was rich. She just needed to be prepared when the right opportunity came. And then it happened. One Saturday morning, driving through a quiet neighborhood, she saw a small "for sale" sign in front of a modest 2-bedroom home. The paint was peeling, the yard was overgrown, but the price was low. Lower than anything she had seen before. Emily's heart pounded. Could this be it? She hesitated. Friends told her she was crazy. You barely make enough to cover rent. How can you afford a house? But Emily ran the numbers. With her savings, a first-time buyer program, and a small mortgage, it was possible. Tight, yes. Risky, yes. But possible. So she took the leap. Emily signed the papers, and at 29 years old, she became the proud owner of her very first home. But instead of just living in it, she had a bold idea, one that would flip her entire future. Emily rented out the spare room to a college student. The rent covered almost half her mortgage. Suddenly, the impossible felt sustainable. That was her first lesson. A house isn't just a place to live. It can also be an asset. 2 years later, she had saved again. She worked extra shifts, skipped vacations, and once more tucked away $50 a week. Slowly, another down payment took shape. House number 2 came when she found another fixer-upper. This time, she didn't hesitate. She rented the entire place out, and the tenant's rent covered the mortgage completely. Emily wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building momentum. And then came house number 3. By now, she was confident. She had discipline, she had systems, and she had a vision. She bought a duplex, living in one unit and renting out the other. Not only did her tenants cover the mortgage, they provided extra cash each month. Emily's $50 habit had snowballed into something extraordinary. From one small sacrifice, she had built a portfolio worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But what shocked people most wasn't the number of houses she owned. It was the way she had done it, quietly, patiently, while everyone else doubted her. Emily never saw herself as extraordinary. She still drove the same modest car, still wore simple clothes, and still packed her lunch most days. To outsiders, she looked like the same woman who once juggled bills at her kitchen table. But the truth was, everything had changed. By her mid-30s, Emily wasn't just a renter anymore. She was a homeowner 3 times over. Her mortgage payments were covered by tenants. She had cash flow every month, and her net worth, the number she once thought was out of reach, had crossed into 6 figures, then into the low millions. The news shocked the people around her. Co-workers who once teased her for skipping dinners out now whispered, "Did you hear Emily owns multiple houses?" Family members who once shrugged at her $50 savings now asked her for advice. Her friends couldn't understand it. They had earned more than she did, spent more than she did, yet they had little to show for it. Meanwhile, Emily's quiet, consistent discipline had built her a future of freedom. The most emotional moment came when Emily's parents visited her duplex for the first time. Her father walked through the rooms, running his hand along the walls, his voice trembling as he said, "I never thought I'd see this. You did what we couldn't." Her mother had tears in her eyes, realizing that their daughter had broken the cycle of struggle their family had known for generations. Emily herself felt a mix of pride and disbelief. The girl who once doubted that $50 could matter now had proof written in bricks, keys, and deeds. And yet, she never saw it as just owning property. To her, each house represented something bigger. The first house was proof she could take control. The second was proof she could grow. The third was proof she had built lasting freedom. Her life wasn't perfect. There were still challenges, still bills to pay, still work to do. But for the first time, Emily could wake up without fear of the future. She had turned scraps into stability, discipline into wealth, and doubt into proof. Cliffhanger line. And what shocked people most was that she hadn't done anything magical. She had simply done what most people never stick to, starting small, staying patient, and refusing to quit. Emily's story might sound unique, but her habits are simple, and anyone can copy them. Here are the lessons hidden inside her journey. First, start small, but stay consistent. Emily didn't wait until she had hundreds to spare. She began with just $50 a week. It wasn't the amount that mattered, it was the discipline. Over time, those tiny deposits turned into down payments. Second, protect your savings like it's sacred. She treated her $50 as untouchable. It wasn't for dinners, clothes, or vacations. It was her future. By giving it purpose, she never let it slip away. Third, live below your means. Emily didn't upgrade her lifestyle when she got raises at work. She didn't buy a nicer car or move into a fancier apartment. She funneled the difference into her house fund. Every no, she said in the short term, became a bigger yes in the long term. Fourth, look for leverage. Her breakthrough wasn't just saving money. It was realizing she could use programs designed for first-time buyers, low down payment mortgages, and rental income to stretch her dollars further. She didn't try to do it all on her own. She used the tools available. Fifth, let your assets work for you. Emily didn't stop at buying her first house. She rented out a room, then an entire home, then half a duplex. Each property created income that covered her expenses and freed her to keep building. She wasn't just saving anymore. She was multiplying. Sixth, stay patient. There were months when progress felt slow, when emergencies ate into her savings, when she doubted it would ever pay off. But she stayed the course. And in the end, patience became her biggest profit. Seventh, measure success by freedom, not flash. Emily could have upgraded her car, her wardrobe, her vacations. But she didn't chase appearances. She chased stability. That's why, while others looked wealthy, she quietly became wealthy. The truth is, anyone can apply these rules. Whether it's $50, $20, or even $10 a week, the power comes from starting, staying disciplined, and letting time and consistency do the work. Because Emily's story proves something most people never believe. You don't need a big salary to build wealth. You just need small steps, repeated long enough, with a vision that never fades. Emily's story isn't just about money. It's about proof. Proof that even $50 a week can be the start of a fortune. Proof that patience and discipline beat luck and excuses. Proof that an ordinary person can build an extraordinary life. So here's the question. If she could do it, why not you? And if this inspired you, don't stop here. Because Emily isn't the only one who turned the impossible into reality. Wait until you hear about the McDonald's worker who quietly retired a millionaire. That story will change the way you think about money forever. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more stories like this.